My name is Layla, and what I'm about to share with you is not a story crafted to impress or entertain. This is my truth. It's raw, it's uncomfortable, and it changed everything I believed about life, death, and what exists beyond both. I was born into certainty. I was raised in tradition. I lived every moment of my early life bound by religious duty, certain of my purpose, certain of what was expected of me, certain of who God was supposed to be. But something happened. Something I didn't ask for, and something I couldn't run from. It started slowly, as a whisper, then grew into a roar I couldn't ignore. My transformation wasn't clean or easy. It was painful, messy, and it cost me nearly everything. But it gave me more than I could ever have dreamed. I didn't set out to abandon my faith. I set out to find peace. I was desperate for truth, and truth, it turns out, was waiting for me in a place I least expected. If you've ever felt like there's something missing, like you're going through the motions but your soul is still starving, then maybe, just maybe, this story is for you. Stay with me. I was born into a world where certainty was everything, where tradition wasn't just culture, it was law. From the moment I opened my eyes, I was trained to believe that obedience was holiness and questions were rebellion. My parents were devout, respected members of our religious community. My father, a man of discipline and honor. My mother, gentle but unshakable in her faith. We prayed 5 times a day. We fasted. We obeyed. My life was a script I didn't write, but I memorized it perfectly. I wore the hijab not for identity, but for fear. I smiled when expected. I stayed silent when necessary. Inside, though, I was already beginning to fray. Not because I wanted to disobey, but because deep down, I could feel something was missing. I didn't know what it was. I just knew the peace everyone spoke of never found me. My teenage years only deepened the confusion. On the outside, I was the perfect daughter, the exemplary Muslim girl. I followed the rules, corrected others when they strayed, memorized more verses than expected. But the more I gave, the more hollow I felt. I remember lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, whispering prayers I didn't understand anymore. I wasn't angry. I was just empty. I thought maybe if I tried harder, if I fasted longer, if I prayed louder, something would change. But it never did. Instead, the silence grew louder. My soul felt like it was trapped in a box it had outgrown. And I hated myself for even thinking that. Guilt became my closest companion. I kept telling myself, this is what faith feels like. You don't have to feel anything. You just obey. But something inside me refused to stay quiet. When I married Amir, I hoped that would be the turning point. He was a man of honor, a scholar, respected by everyone in our mosque. I wanted to love him. I wanted to feel connected to someone who shared my beliefs. At first, I convinced myself I was happy. I cooked, I cleaned, I taught our children everything I had learned. I smiled during sermons, I nodded during his teachings. But that feeling, that gnawing emptiness, never left. In fact, it grew. The more I tried to be what everyone expected, the more I lost myself. I wasn't living. I was performing. And worst of all, I couldn't tell anyone. Not my husband, not my friends, certainly not my parents. Who would understand? Who would believe that someone who did everything right still felt so lost? So I stayed silent, and the silence was killing me. Then came the dreams. They started subtly. Shadows, whispers, sensations I couldn't describe. But soon, they became vivid, unforgettable. I saw fire, I saw chains, I saw light. And in every dream there was a man in white. He never spoke, but he looked straight at me, like he knew me. Not just my face, but my soul. I woke up in cold sweats, shaking, confused. I told Amir. He said I needed to pray more, fast more, repent. I tried, but the dreams continued. And then, one night, the man in white spoke. He said my name, just my name, but it was enough, because in that moment, I felt seen, truly seen, for the first time in my life. And I knew, deep down, that nothing would ever be the same. That same month, the accident happened. It was raining hard. I was heading home late from work. The roads were slick. I remember hearing screeching tires, then nothing. Just silence. No pain, no fear, just silence. Then I was floating. I saw my body, broken, lifeless, on the ground. People screaming, sirens wailing. But I wasn't there anymore. I was somewhere else, somewhere dark. Oppressively dark. I began to fall, slowly at first, then faster. The darkness wasn't just the absence of light, it was alive, heavy, terrifying. I heard screams, I felt heat. I was surrounded by agony. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't metaphor. It was real. I had entered hell, and I wasn't alone. I saw faces, familiar ones. One of them was my former Imam. His eyes met mine and he screamed, "We were wrong. Jesus is the truth." My mind rejected it, but my soul trembled. Suddenly, everything changed. A blinding light broke through the darkness. It wasn't like any light I had ever seen. It didn't just illuminate, it healed. It washed over the torment like a wave. And then I saw him again. The man from my dreams, dressed in white, eyes full of mercy. He said my name again. And with that one word, every fear, every doubt, every shame disappeared. I dropped to my knees and wept. He didn't accuse me. He didn't shame me. He showed me my entire life, my prayers, my obedience, my pain, not to condemn, but to free. He said, "I've always been here, loving, waiting, calling." I asked why I had ended up in darkness if I had done everything right. He said, "Goodness without truth is still blindness. I am the truth." He reached out his hand. I took it. And the moment I did, I woke up in a hospital bed, alive, but never the same again. The first word out of my mouth was Jesus. The room fell silent. Amir was horrified. He called the doctors. He thought I was hallucinating, but I wasn't. For the first time in my life, I was awake. I tried to explain. The dreams, the fire, the light, the man in white. I thought maybe, just maybe, he'd understand. But his face turned to stone. He accused me of blasphemy, said I had been deceived by Satan. I pleaded with him. I wasn't rejecting God. I had met him. I had finally felt him. But it didn't matter. The man I trusted most in the world now saw me as a threat. And word spread fast. In the mosque, at the hospital, among our family, I became the woman who had lost her mind. The apostate, the traitor. Women who once embraced me now turned away. Some crossed the street when they saw me. Others warned their children to stay away. I had become a pariah. I tried to stay quiet for the sake of peace. I tried to contain the fire that had been lit inside me. But truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. Amir demanded that I renounce everything I had said. That I retract every word. That I promise never to speak the name of Jesus again. But how could I? How could I pretend I hadn't seen the face of the one who pulled me from hell? How could I deny the only peace I had ever truly felt? I told him no. I told him I wouldn't lie. I told him the truth had a name, and I had met him. That only made things worse. The silence in our home turned into shouting. The tension turned into threats. Amir said I was putting our family in danger. That if I loved them, I would protect them by going back to silence. But I knew that silence had a price. And it was my soul. The hardest part wasn't the persecution. It wasn't the insults, or the threats, or the looks of disgust. It was my children. My oldest son, Yusuf, was devastated. He said I had disgraced our family, that I had brought shame to our home. He recited scriptures to me with tears in his eyes. He said I needed help, that I was sick. But beneath his anger, I saw it. Fear. And my daughter, Noor, she was different. She didn't yell. She didn't argue. She watched me, closely. Her eyes searched mine like she was trying to see if I was still the mother she remembered. And then one night, she came to my room. She sat beside me and whispered, "Mom, did you really see him?" I took her hand and said, "Yes, sweetheart. I saw him." She didn't say anything else. She just nodded and left. But something changed in her that night. Noor began to ask questions. Quietly, cautiously. She asked what Jesus looked like, what he said, how I knew it was him. I answered each question with honesty, not to convert her, but because the truth cannot hide. And she listened, not as a student, but as someone hungry to understand. She was scared. Scared of what her father would say. Scared of what her friends might think. But more than anything, She was drawn to the peace she saw in me. I told her, "Ask him yourself. He'll answer." That night, she didn't sleep in her own room. She knelt beside my bed and prayed. I wept silently, not out of sadness, but because I could feel the presence of the one I had met in that place of fire standing near. And in that moment, I knew the truth was not mine to control. It was a river, and it was already flowing. But the peace didn't last. One morning, we found the word apostate spray painted in red across our front door. That night, a brick crashed through the living room window. It had a note tied to it: "Leave or die." Amir blamed me. He said I had cursed our home. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't comfort our children, who were sobbing in fear. He just demanded again that I be silent, that I stop saying his name, that I forget everything. But how can you unsee eternity? How can you unfeel the fire and then the rescue? Amir grew colder, not violent with his fists, but with his words, with silence, with control. He threatened to take the children, to tell the courts I was insane, to erase me. I begged him, not for myself but for our family, for our children. I wanted peace, but I could not trade my soul to get it. I realized then that I couldn't stay. Staying would mean dying slowly, spiritually, emotionally. That night I prayed through tears. "Jesus, what do I do?" And his voice came, not loud, but clear. "Go." I waited until Amir was out. I packed a small bag, just essentials, a little food, a photo of my children. I kissed Yusuf's forehead as he slept. I looked into Noor's eyes and said, "Keep asking questions. He will answer." Then I took my youngest, Said, and Miriam. They were still small, still open, still tender. I wrapped them in coats, held their hands, and walked out the back door into the cold night rain. We didn't run from fear. We walked toward truth. And in my heart, I knew Jesus was walking with us. I didn't know where we'd end up. I just knew who we were following. A friend I had met online connected me with a Christian family in Ireland. They agreed to take us in. It was a long journey, buses, walking, hiding. But when we finally arrived, they welcomed us with open arms. No judgment, no fear, just love. Their home was small but warm. Their prayers were simple but full of hope. That night, I slept for the first time in weeks. In the morning, we knelt together and spoke his name, Jesus. Life in Ireland wasn't easy. I had no job, no money, no documents. But I had peace, I had truth, and I had hope. The children started school. I cleaned houses and offices to provide for us. Every night we prayed. Said started drawing pictures of Jesus. Miriam asked to hear Bible stories. They didn't understand everything, but they could feel his presence. And I watched as their hearts began to open. Maybe your story isn't identical to mine. Maybe you weren't born into the same tradition, or didn't walk the same path. But if you've ever felt empty while doing all the right things, if you've ever looked around and wondered why the peace everyone talks about still hasn't reached you, then maybe, just maybe, you're standing where I once stood, caught between fear and truth, between tradition and revelation, between silence and a voice that's calling your name. I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to witness, because what I encountered wasn't an argument. It wasn't a doctrine. It was a person. And when I met him, I changed forever. You don't need to have all the answers right now. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to clean yourself up first. You just need to be willing to whisper his name. Jesus. That one name tore through my darkness. That one name pulled me out of despair and into the light. And if he found me, hidden in fear, buried in shame, paralyzed by religion, he can find you too, right where you are. You don't need to run. You don't need to earn it. Just ask. Just reach. Just open your heart. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be real. If something stirred in you while you listened to my story, don't ignore it. That stirring isn't emotion, it's invitation. He is calling, not to more rules, not to heavier burdens, but to a relationship, to freedom, to truth. The kind of truth that doesn't just change your mind, it heals your soul. This isn't about converting to a religion. This is about meeting the one who made you, who knows your name, who sees you, who's never stopped loving you, even when you didn't know he was there. So if you're ready to stop running, if you're ready to step out of the shadows and into the light, then do it now. Say his name, Jesus. Ask him to show you the truth, and he will. He always does. He's not waiting for you at the finish line. He's standing beside you, right now. He's been there all along, waiting for the moment you'd turn. And maybe this is that moment. Maybe today is the day everything changes. Inscreva-se no canal e siga Jesus. Not religion, not guilt, not fear. Jesus. Come with me on this journey, not just through content, but through a living relationship with the one who saves, restores, and transforms. Each video I share is not just information, it's a step closer to truth, a hand reaching out in the dark, a voice reminding you that you are not alone. If this testimony moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. You never know what your courage might spark in someone else, and I want you to know this. I see you. I'm praying for you. I'm walking with you, even if we've never met. You're not just a viewer. You're part of this story now, a story that's still being written, a story that still has hope. Don't let shame silence you. Don't let fear hold you back. You were made for more. You were made to walk in truth. And no matter how far you feel from God, He is one breath away. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for letting my voice reach your heart. Wherever you are in your journey, I'm here with you. And I'll keep showing up, because truth is too beautiful to stay quiet about. Stay close, stay open, stay walking, because the one who created you is calling you home. Until next time, be strong, be real, stay near the truth.